You ever notice how some meals can feel like a reset button? This potato soup is exactly that. A recipe so simple, so comforting. It makes the world feel like 2 sizes smaller in the best way. This is creamy vegan potato soup. So here's what we're working with. Plant-based butter or olive oil, yellow onion, garlic, all-purpose flour, golden potatoes, vegetable broth, optional dry white wine, plant milk, coconut cream, a single bay leaf, plant-based sour cream, and we can't forget some toppings and seasonings. Okay, before we get into the recipe, I prepped some of our crispy vegan tofu bacon, and I did this for 2 reasons. 1, it's super easy and can be meal prepped ahead of time. 2, I wanted the ultimate version of this soup, and that means I needed all that delicious smoky goodness to make it into the soup. Starting with our garlic, you need about 5 cloves minced, and garlic cooks quickly, so you want that ready before it goes into the pot. And let's be honest, garlic is one of those ingredients you really can't overdo. Well, at least in my opinion. Next, dice 1 large yellow onion. Medium dice, small dice, don't overthink it. Bigger the dice, more the texture. This is your aromatic backbone, and the sweetness of the onion balances the richness we're adding later. Now for the star of the show. We're using Yukon Golds because they're naturally buttery and they hold their shape well. For this soup, peel them. Leaving the skins on would give you a rustic texture, but this time we're aiming for something a bit more silky and smooth. But wait, don't throw them away. Toss them with a little oil, a bit of salt, in the air fryer until they crisp. And boom, you got yourself a crunchy snack or a great soup topping. I cut these about 1 inch, keeping them uniform so they cook evenly. And if you really want to get fancy, simply run them under some water for just a second to remove any surface starch. This will keep your soup from turning gummy. Onward to the seasonings. In a small bowl, we're adding black pepper, smoked paprika, thyme, garlic powder, salt. I'm adding salt now because I'm using a no sodium vegetable broth. But if your broth already has sodium, you may want to hold back in this step and simply wait to the end, taste it, and add more as desired. All right, let's set those spices aside. Get out a large pot or Dutch oven and set it over medium heat. And now you can melt your butter or add in your olive oil. When ready, add your onions, and you want to cook these for about 3 to 5 minutes. Or until softened. When those are ready, you're gonna add in your garlic and you're gonna cook that for about an additional 30 seconds, stirring constantly so it doesn't burn. Right behind that, we're gonna sprinkle in our spices, and we're also gonna stir this constantly for about 30 seconds. This method will bloom our spices and make the flavor more deep and rounded. And this is where I was supposed to add the flour to make our roux, but I completely forgot. When you're doing this at home, don't skip that step. But if you do forget, don't panic. I have a few ways you can still make this work. Here's your fixes if you happen to make the same mistake. Because this is a very starchy soup, the first thing I'm gonna do is wait until the end. At the end of this recipe, we're going to blend part of our soup and add it back into the pot. From here, we can gauge how the natural starches within the soup do in thickening the soup. Now, of course, that might not be enough. So how do we call an audible, right? What's the next play? Use the slurry, a tablespoon cornstarch with 2 tablespoons water or milk, and simply add it into the mixture and stir around. After about a minute or 2, the soup will start to thicken and boom, we're right back in it. Okay, so next, pour in 1/2 cup of dry white wine to deglaze. scraping the bottom of the pot with your spatula to lift all those brown bits. That's pure flavor right there. Once the wine has mostly cooked off, add your potatoes, your vegetable broth, plant milk, and coconut cream. If you're looking for a substitute for coconut cream, you can go with oat milk or cashew cream. I choose cashew when I'm looking for the creamiest, most seamless choice. And I use oat milk when I'm looking for maybe a subtle sweet undertone that also has some body. Stir well, then simmer for about 15 minutes until the potatoes are fork tender. We want the potatoes to have a bit of a bite to them at this point because it's going to give our soup a really satisfying texture when finished. You know, there's something about soup season when the first real chill hits the air and the leaves start changing colors and falling. It's almost like a bat signal. Suddenly, all you want is the smell of soup just sifting throughout the house. And you're standing there, you're stirring. I don't know, maybe just me, but it feels grounding in some type of way. From here, we're going to transfer about half the soup into a high-speed blender. I use a ladle to move the soup from the pot to the blender, holding the blender canister slightly over the pot to reduce any chance of spillage. Half of this soup should be just about 4.5 to 5 cups. Once you have that in there, now we blend. Blend until smooth. For me, it took about 30 to 40 seconds, but do not overblend. Potatoes can get gummy if overworked. Alternatively, you can use an immersion blender directly in the pot if you prefer that. Before we're heading back to our soup, I'm gonna break up our tofu bacon to fit perfectly into our soup. I measure out about a cup's worth to go directly into the soup. Now, pour the blended soup back in and your tofu bacon if you decide to add. Here, we're gonna simmer for just about 10 minutes to infuse that smoky flavor. Finally, stir in the plant-based sour cream, taste and adjust. More salt, more smoked paprika. Personally, I like to add a touch of fresh nutmeg to give the flavors just a bit more warmth. Now stir it. You'll see it come together. Creamy base with chunks of potato for texture. And that's it, no more waiting. This is like a loaded baked potato that you can drink. And I don't know about you, but that's all I need to hear, and it's game on. This full recipe can be found linked in the description, or you can head right on over to my website, makeitdairyfree.com. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Until next time, believe in good. I'll see you next week. Peace.